In this episode, we'll be talking about summer trading and how that's relevant to Christmas and the Golden Quarter, looking at things like back to school, the weather, consumer mood, and what that means. Hi, I'm Claire Bailey, and I'm really delighted to introduce you to the first episode of Retail Reckoning. I came up with this idea because I wanted to share practical insights, grounded in data and experience from a large team that helps retailers, hospitality and leisure businesses, and all those in the visitor economy as well, to understand what's happening across the industry and to learn from that, and to then get some pithy, practical recommendations, I guess, that helps people to develop their businesses. The purpose, to help the high street battle some of the difficulties they're facing with all of the policy changes, the rising costs, and of course, the changing consumer behaviour. If you were expecting fluff and fillers and the same old talking points about the high street, this probably won't be for you. But if you want practical insight based on data and experience and a nudge in the right direction, you're in the right place. Welcome to Retail Reckoning.
Yeah, Retail Reckoning. Retail Reckoning. No space for dusty shelves, 'cause Retail Reckoning owns the floor.
This is September, but before we dive into Christmas trading forecasts, let's talk about what we've learned over the summer. Because make no mistake, the lessons will shape the winners and losers of our forthcoming Golden Quarter. So, the summer. What happened? Let's start with the headlines. We know, as published in Retail Week, that UK retail sales rose 3.1% year on year in June, and it was very much driven by the weather. Food, probably barbecues and beers and so on, was up 4.1%. And a lot of that was also to do with staycationing. Non-food only grew by a modest 2%. What's really interesting, and according to the MRI Springboard data, footfall was flat, more or less, up only 0.1%. Now that's an interesting cluster of stats, and what it tells us is that whilst shoppers were spending, they weren't wasting their time browsing, they weren't wandering, frankly it was too hot. They came in with purpose, they'd been online, they'd looked at what was available, researched, decided and acted. This was a case of, I can't be bothered to wait for the delivery tomorrow. I need that fan, that paddling pool, that barbecue right now. And some stores really nailed it. They'd stocked up, they'd got cool interiors, easy access parking, click and collect that actually worked. But others seemed to miss the moment entirely. So I think the September lesson here is convenience is as good as currency. You have to make the customer journey worth it, or they will go elsewhere. We've also seen in the news lots about back to school and also university spend. Back to school seems to have started really, really early, in fact, before they even broke up. And it still is a big deal, but it's different. Parents have started early because they know that towards the end of August, stocks start to run low. But they have to guess about the growth spurts, the inevitable growth spurts, because in the summer, kids grow like weeds. So they buy blazers with sleeves hanging off the ends of their hands in the hope that by September they're going to fit. The thing is with that, retailers could get more smart. They could offer the option to buy a size now and a guaranteed swap out longer than a normal returns or exchange policy, just in case children grow. As for the uni-bound students, it's all about the bundle culture. I've got 2 kids at uni, and when they first started, they raided everything in my kitchen and stole as much as they possibly could from the house. But they needed these bundles with kitchen sets, bedding kits, study packs, you name it. They went for the cheap stuff, and cheap definitely didn't mean value. Pretty much within a year, my son has replaced all of his stuff because it simply wasn't good enough. So people want the quality within the bundle and the convenience of it all being in one box. And if the retailers want to win on this, they need to offer both, because people talk. They share their experiences on social media. And if their student or child, whatever, has bought a bundle, or you've bought it for them more than likely, and it's full of rubbish that within weeks the knives have gone blunt or the cutlery's fallen apart, that's not going to be good enough and you'll get bad feedback. The other thing, for the back to uni, hospitality and leisure, Freshers Week is huge. From parents staying over in hotels to help move the kids in, and Just Eat vouchers going to all the new students, student-only drink deals, double-point loyalty schemes, all of the retailers across a place where there's a university typically are trying to drive student footfall and attract their loyalty now. And you know what? If you get a student buying from your outlet while they're at uni, chances are they'll stay with you for life. So it's worth the investment in deals and discounts to get the students' attention. Of course, if you're the kind of venue, for instance, that doesn't want students, put the prices up. Market it very clearly that you're more of a non-student venue, higher end, a little unaffordable to them, because that'll make you much more appealing to the kind of people who don't want to be in a rowdy student rabble and would rather have a nice quiet meal. And that will actually add to your brand strength as well. The other thing that we've noticed in June and July, looking back and thinking how that's going to affect September, is consumer mood. Were they spending or were they saving? And I'd describe the mood as sort of cautiously optimistic. There's a couple of stats. There's the S&P Household Sentiment Index. That was running at 45.1, so it's on the low side. The GfK consumer confidence was minus 16, and inflation was wobbling around 3.6. What does that actually mean, though? It means shoppers are not saying no. They're just saying, go on, convince me. Because I believe this is the era of the considered purchase. Really well-researched retail. It's no longer enough just to have availability. You have to have relevancy. And also, you have to have a sufficiently accessible online presence so that before making that journey, customers can actually have a look at what you've got to offer, how you offer it, where can they park, what are the opening hours, all the sensible stuff that tells them they won't have a wasted journey. And that applies to whether you're a multiple or an independent. But what I believe is local independents have got a bit of an edge because they actually know their customers inside out. They live and work in the community. They probably see them every day, not just in the shop or the coffee shop, but on the school run or in other aspects like in the gym. And they can flex their offer because they know the micro-local economy. The big guys, they don't do that so much. They tend to look at homogenised data. Everything's command and control from head office. There's no localisation and no local autonomy. So the store managers act on something that isn't necessarily as relevant to the absolutely micro-local community. They act on what's something relevant to perhaps the region, which means that it's quite relevant, but it hasn't got the wow factor. And that leads to talking about things like what does value mean to a customer? And it's not really just about price. And value certainly isn't the same thing as a discount. It's probably more to do with things like quality, speed of service and speed of delivery, the friendliness of the service. Do they have sustainability policies? And back to the previous point, localisation. Have they understood me and my needs in my community? Now, one of the retailers that's particularly good at this is the Co-op. But generally, I find that the mass market and multiples have less of the localisation as, of course, the independents. Actually, though, when it comes to value to consumers, it's all of those things, or at least several of them, and ultimately it's about convenience as well. But what does convenience actually mean? And it's different things to different people on different days, depending on what they're buying. The independents can absolutely own the space when it comes to understanding the customer and getting what they value right now and delivering it and being able to respond really quickly to changes, whether that be a local road closure or a housing estate going up, versus the multiples who might miss those nuances at the local level and not be able to necessarily deliver as quickly because it takes a long time for the wheels to turn and turn, to analyse the data, to distribute, for example, new layout diagrams or new ranges, whereas the independents can act today. Something else that's come up, of course, and it's been going on for a long time, but it's quite linked to some key information that's come out recently, is that all the retailers, whether large or small, are under immense margin pressure. And that's also affected by some of the policy reforms. We've seen through the BRC and the Financial Times that business rates are likely to be rising by 600 million next year for the major retailers. However, there has been some potential light at the end of the tunnel with lobbying from the BRC, and we remain to see what will happen in the autumn statement. But we feel that as of last year's autumn statement, all of those pressures are still hitting hard. The rises to NI, the increase to minimum wage, and of course, inflation is still quite high. Now, retailers tackling inflation have to consider, do they put prices up and potentially alienate customers, or do they keep prices as they have been, especially on what are known as known value items, the products that customers know what it should cost, and therefore then erode their own margin? Online and card fraud are growing, according to stats out of the British Independent Retailers Association. Add to all that the recently announced planning reform. The government wants to convert empty premises into cafes and bars and create a social environment in the empty spaces by cutting red tape. I mean, that sounds good, but planning can't be the reason why those units are empty. If there were a possibility of a viable business in those units, they'd be there already. The problem's more likely to do with the demand. So when a business looks at an empty unit, they consider, is there enough of a customer base here? What's the rent looking like? What's the utility bill going to be? And if it's low footfall, it won't survive. So planning becomes irrelevant if we don't fix the basic economics of the area to ensure that there are sufficient customers to support a business and create a viable business. So yes, it sounds great on paper, but in reality, I just think it's a bit of a moot point, because whether you can easily get round planning reforms and planning changes and changing things from A1 retail to whatever it may be is entirely irrelevant, because planning isn't the major expense. It's only a couple of £100 to put in a request to a planning officer to get a change of use. In fact, though, it's thousands for your rent, your rate and your utilities. Of course, speaking of footfall, data from a good friend of mine, Diane Whirl, shows we're still 10% down against the pre-COVID levels across many destinations. And that further explains why planning reform isn't going to bring those empty units back into use just by changing the use class. So with all that in mind and the recent news to take into account, what do we do now? Well, we have to get practical. One of the first things I look at with clients, whether they're large or small, is the range review. We ditch the dogs and back the stars. Now, there's a basic analysis of range that includes stars, dogs, cash cows and question marks. The dogs are the ones that are really dragging you down, holding up cash flow in redundant stock. The stars are the ones that are really flying. Obviously, the cash cows are good tick over, but you have to watch when their life cycle tips downwards. And then you've got the question marks. Which way are they going to go? Probably newly introduced. But we always analyse the range from cash contribution. So what we look at is, by descending order, what products deliver the most actual cash? Not sales, not percent margin, but actual cash margin, because as they say, sales are vanity, profit is sanity. Typically, your top 20% of performers are delivering the top 80% of sales, and in many cases, even more. And the bottom tail can often be very, very long. And unless those products are important in so much as they belong in baskets whereby other high profit items exist, and thus they're part of a combined purchase, it's definitely worth rationalisation. The other thing that's really simple, and I cannot believe how many businesses, large and small, get this wrong, is their Google business profile. You know, the pin on the map? It's the easiest way to be findable and reachable. And because of the way mobile search works, it puts you on page one. The number of searches for something near me has gone up enormously over the last few years. And it links back to the point about convenience and wanting to do your research before you make a shopping trip. You need to know the opening hours, the location, and so on. And so many businesses miss the point. The pin is in the middle of the postcode area, not on their premises. The opening hours are wrong. The information's out of date. Cafes don't publish pictures of their relevant menus, so you don't know what you're going to get. And I think a lot of people worry that if they go out and have a wasted journey and pay for parking, that's a massive disappointment and extremely inconvenient. If that happens, chances are they won't come back. Equally, if the data seems to be out of date, are people really going to take the risk to come to you, or will they look at the next one down the list? And don't forget the value of reviews. Ask for reviews. I have a little tip when I do talks at conferences, which is give out a thank you card in every shopping bag, or send a thank you email to every online order and say, if you enjoyed your service experience with us, please review us. And on the physical postcard, you could say, here's a QR code to our Facebook or our Google or wherever your preferred reviews might be. If it's hospitality, that would be TripAdvisor, perhaps. If you didn't enjoy your experience with us today, please talk to us directly to allow us to rectify it for you so you have a better experience next time. That's how you dodge the negative reviews, generate more positive reviews, and a physical card that says, thank you for your business. It means the world to us, especially for the smaller businesses. Makes a real difference, because when you open your shopping bag and you find that inside, it makes you smile. And it's a little moment of joy that also leads to them taking positive action towards giving you the reviews. The other thing that I find is click and collect can be a bit of a nightmare. The whole point of click and collect is to make the process as frictionless as possible. I know that when I arrive at that store, my order will be there ready and waiting for me. Except half the time they go fumbling around in the back looking for a parcel. They've emailed you to say it's ready, it's not ready. You're hanging about for 20 minutes until they finally appear, a bit red-faced, saying, give us 10 minutes, we're just organising it now. That means that you've really annoyed a customer. And if you can't make it frictionless, don't offer it at all. And if you get to tell people that their order is ready, be doubly sure that it is. And the last point about things to do now, use your data. That local context beats the national average homogenised data every single time. For the mass retailers, I'd urge you to start looking at a more hyper-local data set and perhaps empowering store managers to do more in the community and to be involved more and to push back and say, whilst I can see that nationally this product sells really, really well, or regionally we tend to have a bias towards a product, in my store, that is or isn't the case, and actually use their EPOS data to push back and ask for some autonomy around their layouts, planograms and ranging. It's really important to make sure that you stand out to the customer, because being average to everyone means you're almost irrelevant to everyone at the same time. This is your first retail reckoning. If it hit the spot, please tell me. If it missed something, well, you need to tell me that too, because only with your feedback can I improve this and make it really important and valuable and relevant to you. I'm not doing this for ego or vanity. I'm doing this to make a genuine connection with the people in retail who are interested in the stats, what's happening, and real-world advice. I'd also be really grateful if you'd share it, forward it, and we also put out a newsletter, which is more of a cross between a newsletter, a blog, and a white paper, because it's a long opinion piece with content, ideas, insights, and recommendations. And we do that every month. And if you'd like to see that, you can subscribe at retailchampion.co.uk/retail-reckoning. We are here to challenge, encourage, and accelerate better decisions that take the industry forward and help our high streets to become what they need to be to serve the local community and to react to the consumer trends that have forced such rapid change in the last 10 years. Thanks for listening. I'm Claire Bailey, and this has been Retail Reckoning.
Yeah.